Hello, it's Michelle Hemley here, and welcome to the Hemley's blog for this week, where we're talking role models. So what is a role model? Well, essentially, it's somebody that you look up to and aspire to be like. They might be doing something that you would like to do really, really well. So therefore, you model some of your behaviour on what you perceive their characteristics to be. Role models are really important in regards to sporting performance and also long-term active lifestyles. And what I wanted to discuss today was just address a few considerations if you're planning on using a sporting role model, either for your own performance or you might be a parent, coach, teacher, sporting club committee member who has influence over athletes. Just some things to think about in regards to promoting sporting role models if you want to actually have the most positive impact on your players and athletes. So consideration number one is don't promote the whole person as a role model if you don't know anything about them. Promote the things you actually want to see your players do. So just to give you a bit of background, this blog post was actually prompted by the retirement of Chris Judd, AFL player. So I am a passionate West Coast Eagles supporter, so I have followed Juddy's career pretty much since he started and till he sadly finished a few weeks ago. And because he's been in the media a lot over the last few weeks with his retirement, it actually triggered a memory for me, which was something he said once. Now, don't quote me word for word, but it was along the lines of, "I'm not a role model, I'm a footballer." Now, I kind of agree, and in a contradiction, I disagree with this statement. He's completely right. What he's good at is football. What his job is playing football really, really well. That's what he's well known for. However, as he is very good at something that puts him in the public eye and people will aspire to be like him, essentially he is a role model. He doesn't get a choice. Now, if we're using someone like Chris Judd, he has got a bit of a glowing reputation in the media. Some people do. So we could be confused and say, model yourself on Chris Judd, or Chris Judd is a great person. Chris Judd is all these things we don't actually know he is, because unless we're his close friends, his family members, his teammates, we don't really know what Chris Judd's personality is like. But what we do know, because we can actually see this, is his perseverance in overcoming injury, his leadership skills, his commitment to his core conditioning program as a teenager, and therefore that's why he was able to break tackles and had that acceleration out of the pack throughout his career. Those are all things that you can bring up if you're coaching an adolescent group of footballers. So I'd be wary against saying, oh, Chris Judd's a great person, but you could say Chris Judd's commitment to his training, Chris Judd's leadership skills in this situation, things you've actually seen. Because I tell you what, I've worked in sport a long time. I have been, it's either fortunate or unfortunate enough to meet many sporting superstars that I've looked up to. And sometimes I've been severely disappointed by what they are actually like as compared to what the media has painted them to be. And in contrast, I've met some sporting stars who haven't exactly been painted in the most positive light by the media. Yeah, I've met them and they've been fantastic and they've been helpful and they've worked with projects I've worked on in the most passionate way. So you can't always believe what you see in the media. And just throwing a few names out there, Ben Cousins, Tiger Woods, Lance Armstrong, nobody's perfect. They were all superstars at executing the sports that they were involved with. However, they also had quite public falls from grace. And I think maybe if we hadn't put them up on this pedestal as perfect beings, just because they could ride a bike fast or swing a golf club well, then maybe we wouldn't be so disappointed in their flaws, which are essentially human. We've all got flaws. So if you're leading a team of athletes or a club and you're promoting sports role models who I guess are more well-known identities rather than actual members of your club that you interact with and know personally really well, I would pick things that you know as a fact about their sporting performance to promote as the role modelling behaviour, rather than grand statements about what a great person they are or a fantastic being they are. So that's consideration number one. Don't make the whole person the role model, just make aspects of their sporting performance you want to see modelled in your players the role model. Consideration number two is recognise who your real role models are. Now, they have done extensive research, particularly on kids in sport, on who the most effective role models for these young athletes are. And guess who it is? It isn't the famous players. It isn't the superstars of the sport. It is the people they interact with every day who they will most closely copy the behaviour of. So let me say that again. It isn't the superstars. It is their parents. It is their teachers. It is their coaches that they interact with weekly whose behaviour they will copy. So if you are in one of those positions, recognise the fact you are a role model and display the behaviours that you want to see in your athletes. So don't talk about sportsmanship if you're going to rant and rave at the umpire yourself. Don't talk about accepting a bad race, with a grain of salt and then sulk and throw a tantrum when you yourself have a bad race. Display the behaviours that you want to actually see in your athletes. And recognise the fact, if you're trying to promote behaviour change in your athletes, you don't always have to use someone famous. So I'll tell you a story about a few years ago. I was up in North Queensland about to race Ironman Cairns up there. I was working for the Australian Sports Commission at the time, and one of my colleagues based in Cairns, Roger, had organised a huge tour of the schools that week. He was going out, he was playing triathlon games with them, he was giving them information about the kids' triathlon that weekend, and basically just trying to get the school kids excited about a community event that was happening. So he asked if I wanted to come, and I went, yeah, that sounds fantastic. Anyway, what I did was I sent around an email to fellow triathletes I knew and a few professional triathletes and said, hey, this is what we're doing, we're visiting schools, would you like to come? Now, the person who got back to me was Ironman champion Pete Jacobs, who has since gone on to win the Hawaii Ironman World Championships. So he actually is a superstar of the sport. At that stage, he hadn't won Hawaii, but he'd come in the top 10 there 2 or 3 times. I can't quite remember, sorry, Pete. So he agreed to come along with us. Now, we went out to this little school in the Cairns hinterland, and as soon as we got there, the teachers, the kids, a few parents who came down to see us all started telling us about a mum at the school who was doing the Ironman, and they were so excited. And this kid at the school, whose actual mum it was racing, he was a superstar at the school. So we played games and we talked to them, and the kids loved it and they were highly involved. And at the end, I said to them, okay, you can have autographs now if you like. And I've turned around because I actually meant go and get Pete's autograph and to pack up stuff. And there was a line of kids behind me waiting for mine. And I'm like, what are you doing? I said, oh, we want your autograph. And I'm like, why? He's the professional athlete. I'm not very good. And they've gone, oh, no, you're racing. He's not. Because Pete had told them all about his success at the World Champs. But then he'd said, I'm injured. I'm not racing this weekend. I'm just up here for my sponsors. So they'd taken that on board. But I think that was something to recognise. The kids didn't actually understand the grand achievements some of us do with adults, but they understand things that are directly in front of them. So they heard that I was racing because it was near to them. They actually understood the distances and what was involved. The real star at this school was this mum. She was the most effective role model at this school. It did not matter that some outsiders had come in and played games and a world champion had come and spoken to them and played with them. If we're looking at behaviour change and these kids getting involved in this event in the future, they will be way more inspired by this mother at the school than anything we could have done on that day. So that's a really important lesson. Don't feel that you have to get a superstar player in. Just pump up the people in your own community and what they do, especially if you're working with young athletes, because sometimes they don't understand the enormity of an AFL Grand Final or a Hawaii Ironman World Championships enough. They can just relate with what's directly in their backyard and who they see day to day. So that's number 2. Recognise who your role models are and pump them up accordingly. You don't need anyone famous, especially if you're dealing with youngsters. And point number 3 is use appropriate role models for the right situations. So I'll give you an example of a company who I think does this really well, and that's Run Australia. So Run Australia is a series of fun runs held at different regional towns throughout Australia. There's one in Geelong, near to where I live. There's one in Newcastle, Sunshine Coast, Townsville. There's a few others that I can't name off the top of my head. Now, these fun runs are linked in with a major local charity, which is awesome. It gets people involved, getting fit and knowing that they can contribute some funds to something local. And they use ambassadors for each event. Now, what I really like about Run Australia is they use ambassadors that are completely relevant to that town. So, for instance, one of the Geelong ambassadors is Joel Selwood, who's the captain of the Geelong Cats. Cats. Anyone who's visited Geelong knows that the town revolves around the football club. So this is someone who's in the public eye, who people know and see out in the community all the time. And it's also football off season. So he's running this fun run in November going, hey, I'm going to use this for my off-season training. The two most popular sports in the town are netball and football. So if they're trying to get people involved, all the footballers out there who look up to Joel Selwood are going, oh, cool, it's good enough for Joel to do in his pre-season, off-season. It's good enough for me. In fact, that'll be a really good test of my fitness. And so it's actually an ambassador who has a strong link for the town and a strong link to the type of people that they're trying to influence. When you look up at the Sunshine Coast, they used a local personal trainer, a triathlete, and a young person involved with the charity that they were looking to support. And that's what they do as well. They have a young athlete who's involved with the Children's Hospital, which is usually the recipient of their funds. And that's what that town's about. It's about triathlon and getting fit and all of those sorts of things. So they've been really specific with the role models they're using. An issue I often see with sporting clubs is they'll want to talk to kids or younger athletes, and they'll bring in someone who might have been successful 30 or 40 years ago at an event that no longer happens. And this person will come in and talk to the kids, and it will go completely over their heads because they don't know who this person is. They don't see them out on a day-to-day basis. They don't understand the enormity of what they might have achieved, and that event might not even be around anymore. So make sure, if you're looking to promote role models at your club or at your event or for your organisation, look at who your target audience is and look at if your role model actually fits what you're trying to promote. So there are your three considerations if you're looking to promote sporting role models as a parent, teacher and coach. One is separate the whole person from the sporting performance. Role model highlight the behaviours you want to see in your athletes rather than just say that this person's a great person. Number two is recognise that you are a role model and recognise that role models are amongst us day to day. They're often the strongest ones, so utilise those people. You don't need to get anybody famous in. And number three, use appropriate role models for the right situation. So that's it for today. I hope you got a lot out of this blog post. Please visit us at the Hemleys website, www.hemleys.com.au. We've got a lot of exciting things happening and a lot of new projects underway that I can't wait to tell you about. So if you want to keep informed, sign up to our newsletter and I'll see you next week. Thank you very much. Bye.